Steer back on the highway. We have a Dynasty Superflex Rookie Draft, and we're obviously going to start with round one. Us three are alternating picks here. This is going to be this is a lot of fun because this is a good way to break down the value of the rookie class. Hopefully a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
But for clarity, this is...
Jay, did it seem like Connor felt like it was just saying that? Didn't really feel like it was a lot of fun.
I'm going to take the under on fun.
Yeah.
Under 0.5 fun.
Under 0.5 on fun.
After that.
So, you know what I did at the Kentucky Derby? I interviewed the last year's Indy 500 winner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Marcus Ericsson.
What did you ask?
You asked him about milk?
I did not ask him about milk. I asked him about... about his Derby experiences. I asked him who he liked in the Derby. I also asked him, I thought this was a good question, because the Indy 500 is a race unlike any other, and he won that one, and the Kentucky Derby is a horse race like any other. Like, what advice would he give to the jockeys in terms of racing in this race versus all the other races they've done in their lives? And so he gave a very thoughtful answer there.
Oh, lovely.
So that's what I thought that was a good answer. I thought that was a good question.
You just said good luck. That's it.
What?
You just said he gave a thoughtful answer, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, I had like a minute. You know what I mean? Like I can't. This is not 60 minutes. You know what I mean? Like they're moving on.
A sit down at the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly like I'm not suddenly Roy Firestone at the Kentucky Derby. Like
Very stone.
Yeah, exactly. Let me. I'm not. Whatever.
All right, so should I make the first pick?
Yes. Dynasty Superflex Rookie Draft. For those that don't play in a Dynasty Superflex, it's 2 quarterbacks, so the value on quarterbacks is at a premium.
No, hang on for a second.
Oh, boy.
Let me explain this.
Yes.
All
right.
Right.
Milkman has the floor.
Because saying a Superflex is 2 quarterbacks is not enough.
Well, by the way, because it's not. A Superflex means you have the ability to play 2 quarterbacks. A Superflex league is, in essence, you're playing a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 or 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and then usually like 4 flexes, one of whom can be a quarterback. So again, that's usually how a Superflex works. The ideal scenario is that you're starting 2 quarterbacks, but it's right is that
you're in big trouble if you're not.
Right, but my point is it's not. There is a 2 quarterback league is technically different than a Superflex league. We are also, by the way, dynasty leagues. If you're not in one, please join one.
Yeah, it's the best.
It is awesome.
Yep.
They are amazing. Really, really fun. But what I will tell you is that every Dynasty League is different. So what we've chosen for this exercise is a Superflex using PPR scoring and just rookies. Now, again, as we sort of go through this and we talk about this, the idea is that, like, I'm a big believer in, because it's Dynasty, I'm less worried about team role and more about just the talent of the player. Again, we saw it with Breece Hall last year. We saw it with Ken Walker. People were concerned about the landing spot, and obviously both ended up fine till Hall got injured. But it is worth noting that so we're doing this based on ours, but your rules might be different and everything like that. And so I prefer to in this particular case, like if you're in a league where you have to play 4 wide receivers, team need, meaning your fantasy team need, might take precedence over quote unquote talent.
Sure.
Jay, you had the number 1 pick, and listen, there hasn't been much of a debate around this in any Dynasty
Don't screw this up.
Yeah, I'm taking Bijan Robinson with the first pick. This wasn't difficult. I think the big question is, in redraft, does Bijan maybe go 1, 2 in redraft? Honestly,
I don't think he goes that high, and I think it's Bijan. I don't think it's Bijan.
Bijan. The French pronunciation.
No.
To
the
pronounce the
Provence.
R in Robinson.
Yeah.
That's another conversation for another day.
I think with Bijan,
What's amazing is, most people that come from another country do butcher the English language, but you're Australian.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're coming over from France or Italy or something like that. In essence, you have the same language as us.
Yeah, my wife, who's not Australian, she's from Sweden. She was making fun of me last night at dinner ordering the Sangiovese, which apparently is not how you say that one either.
No.
Sangiovese. Anyway, Bijan Robinson. I just think Tyler Algier had, 1,100 rushing yards last year behind an amazing run-blocking offensive line, a coach with a religious commitment to running the ball in a bad division where Bijan, I think, is just going to get just an incredible amount of usage. He's got the talent. Past 20 years, 3 best running back prospects: Adrian Peterson, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson.
I would say so, and I think Bijan might even be better than Saquon.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the other thing too, I've had a bet on Bijan Robinson to win Offensive Player of the Year, not rookie, Offensive Player of the Year at 60 to 1.
Wow.
I just think that this guy could win the rushing title, could have 2,000 yards from scrimmage on a team that could win the division just because it's a bad division. So yeah, Bijan was number 1, not difficult for me.
And the other thing that I think will get talked about with Bijan Robinson as we get closer, but isn't been talked about really right now, is the fact that he's so versatile in the passing game. Like, there's a scenario where it's not just like, oh, this guy's really good and he's going to get 25 carries a game. Like, they could, and I think they will, use him the way that they used Cordero Patterson the last 2 years, especially 2 years ago when Patterson was kind of a fantasy superstar. He's running long. I mean, he's running fly routes. You know, he's running slot passes. They're also giving it to him at the goal line. I mean, like, he's basically Cordero Patterson, just younger and better and faster and more versatile. I mean, like, so I think, you know, Bijan Robinson should be very special. No issue with the pick there.
There hasn't been a lot of debate at number 1, but there has been some debate at number 2.
I will say I am in a Dynasty rookie draft at the moment, and the person who had pick 1 is a well-known fantasy analyst. Did not take Bijan Robinson 1.
Took Anthony Richardson.
I've heard a little bit of this.
Yeah, took Anthony Richardson, who's I'm going to take here at pick 2. Again, I just think Dynasty quarterbacks are so important. In Dynasty, you're thinking about not just this year, but you're thinking about, you know, the future. There's a wide range of outcomes for Anthony Richardson, probably a wider range of outcomes than there are for Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. But for me, the ceiling is what's important here. Richardson has a scenario where he's the best player in fantasy in 3 years. Like, I mean, that's within the range of outcomes. And so I think that upside is worth it. I like the fact that he's going to the Colts with a good, like, he's not going to a team that has to completely rebuild. There's pieces around him already. So it's just a matter of getting him up to NFL speed. So give me Anthony Richardson at 2.
Was that drafter you were talking about very quarterback desperate, or they just loved the player?
They both. They were quarterback. I think both quarterback player. I haven't talked to the particular person about why they drafted Anthony Richardson over Bijan Robinson. They're definitely quarterback desperate, but at the time not as. At the time they had Herbert and Carr, so not like crazy, not crazy quarterback desperate. They ended up trading Herbert later, but yeah, I mean, it was a team that was drafting first for a reason. So they had needs all over the place. If I was in charge of that team, I'd have drafted Bijan Robinson.
So at number 3, I took Bryce Young, premium on quarterback here. I look at Bryce Young and think, listen, they don't have the weapons yet for him to have this kind of production, but Joe Burrow is what you hope he can be from a production standpoint. He's not going to run a lot. He's an excellent thrower. He's very accurate. He's a highly efficient player. He can extend plays. It doesn't mean he's a runner, but he can scramble and extend plays. Carolina doesn't have the passing weapons yet for him to explode, but this is a pick where you think in year 3 he could be one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy. So I was pretty content with Bryce Young at 3.
Yep.
I think in a Superflex league, you're going quarterback heavy in rookies, especially with guys like, you know, with Young. Stroud should come off the board here fairly soon. And then, you know, obviously Richardson as well. The only thing I'll just say here, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on Bryce Young. Sorry, I was just going to say is let's like as we continue the draft, the premise here is not that we're doing a 3-man draft. Like, in essence, it's Jay's pick now, and you're going to be drafting the first pick for Team 4, not the second pick for Team 1.
Yep. And so given that, I did think about C.J. Stroud at 4 because of the premium on quarterbacks and Superflex, so I went Jahmyr Gibbs. And the reason why is just that I mean, you can speak to this better than I can, Connor, but in terms of pass-catching running backs entering the draft, I mean, he could be Christian McCaffrey, and there's not many people that you can say that about. So I particularly think as well with the team fit, I think with running backs, it's more important as well for Dynasty to focus on more the immediate, because you just don't know what these guys are going to be in 4 or 5 years, because just projecting out that far with running backs is fraught with peril. So he goes to an amazing situation. Clearly they believe in him. If you saw the reaction in the draft room from Dan Campbell, they move on DeAndre Swift. David Montgomery's presence is kind of annoying, but at the same time, Gibbs' talent, I think, is such that he's going to be a weapon from day 1.
Yeah, it's a PPR league, and I think his usage will be the same as Alvin Kamara's within 2 years. So I think this is a great pick.
I mean, Swift finished as a top 15 fantasy running back and had at least 45 receptions each of the last 3 years, despite missing time, despite not playing a ton of snaps. And so the role is amazing there. It also depends on sort of, again, as we talked about, team need. Like, we're doing a rookie draft, but we haven't determined is this a startup rookie draft, or is this just like, you know, a rookie draft for an established, long-standing? So, if I was like a team that, you know, felt really good about my quarterback situation, I had good young quarterbacks, and I'm in a win-now mode, I would take Gibbs over Stroud too. I have no issue with that, right? But I do think that if we were doing just a pure startup, I would probably take Stroud over Gibbs. I prefer in Dynasty quarterbacks and wide receivers over running backs, just because obviously the longevity of their career. But now I'm picking for the first pick for Team 5, and I will take C.J. Stroud. Again, we think probably the most it depends on where you sit on Bryce Young. He's obviously off the table here, but either before or after Bryce Young, the most pro-ready quarterback coming out this year. Houston has a better offensive line than you think. They're trying to get him some weapons. It's going to be a little bit of a tough sledding there with his pass catchers. We have high hopes for Tank Dell. Maybe Nico Collins can emerge. They do have Dalton Schultz there. They should have a good run game with Pierce and company. But I'm betting on the front office and a new regime in Houston to build around C.J. Stroud. So, given the fact that everyone else that's off the table, Richardson and Young especially, give me C.J. Stroud.
So the top 3 quarterbacks are gone, not surprising there, and the top 2 running backs are gone as well. Guys, this is where I just go talent. I went with Jackson Smith and Jigba. He was my number 1 wide receiver. It was a no-brainer for me at number 6. I did my first Dynasty draft of the year last night. I got him at number 7. I was very surprised by that. So he's, in my opinion, being slept on at this point because people are looking at DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in the now. And in Dynasty, that is the worst outlook to have with him when you think JSN is probably their number 2 wide receiver within 2 to 3 years instead, and a valuable slot piece now. Barry, I know you are very high on JSN in your rookie rankings this year as well.
Talented kid who's got a quarterback here. And to your point, I mean, look, they threw to the slot a lot last year. I mean, usually that was Tyler Lockett. So, but I think JSN, right? Again, we talk about longevity. Give me, I think you got a steal here. I think Team 6 got a steal here. Again, it's Superflex, so you want the quarterbacks here. But in a startup, I would have taken JSN over Gibbs. Just again, the longevity of wide receiver versus a running back here. So, he's got a quarterback and some older wide receivers around him. There's not 2 years from now, if we're talking about the fact JSN is the leading receiver on the Seahawks, it wouldn't shock me.
Yep. Pick 7, Wade up. Jordan Addison versus Quentin Johnston. Ultimately went with Addison. I just prefer the context a little bit more. I think that he'll be more productive from the get-go. I think that the Vikings offense should be better than it was last year. I don't think it quite produced at the talent level that it had. You love being opposite Justin Jefferson. Just means that you're never going to get double covered in Minnesota. Also, I think their offensive line is stronger than people might give them credit for. When Christian Darrisaw was out there, they did have a good offensive line for the first time in a long time for Kirk Cousins. So just like Addison's context, like the talent, and I picked him at 7.
Yeah, you know what? Which is nice, because you nailed the first pick. You screwed up the second one, but you came back strong. And Addison, I think, was the correct pick there.
Okay.
So well done.
Matthew.
I agree with you. Again, over 100 targets vacated by Adam Thielen. He should have a role immediately. It's an offensive-minded coach. It's an offensive-minded system. He's also got a good quarterback there. We'll see if KJ Osborne takes the next step here. But to me, Addison should be the number 1 wide after JSN. Should be the number 1 wide receiver in both redraft and dynasty. So I think you nailed that correctly. So with those 2 guys gone, I agree with you. Your pick should have been between Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston. You took Addison. So that leaves me with Johnston. Look, last year, both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams missed 11 games. Combined, they missed 11 games. Both guys, Keenan Allen's on the wrong side of 30. Mike Williams has suffered injuries throughout his career. And Quentin Johnston, who's just a big, tall, vertical threat, is, again, you talk about pairing with a quarterback. Does he have someone landing in a spot with what we expect to be a good offense? I'm a Kellen Moore fan. I like Kellen Moore, and so getting Johnston in there, I don't know how much production he's going to have this year as long as Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are healthy, but I do think it's a great landing spot for him. Justin Herbert's he's a superstar and he's young, and so they're going to grow together. This is great.
Yep.
Pick number 9, I took our first tight end off the board and went with Dalton Kincaid. It's just the fact how we opened the show, a special pass catcher in terms of
I didn't think you were
tight
paying
end.
attention at the top of the show. I was hoping you would sneak back around to me. But
No,
thanks.
I know.
You were actually paying attention.
Oh,
All right.
absolutely.
So Jay's the only one that doesn't listen?
That's
no doubt.
actually correct.
Right,
Yes.
okay, good.
I'm always locked in.
Robinson. Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid at number 9 because you are probably getting potential receiver usage and production at a position that it's hard to find right now, Barry. That's how I looked at this. Kincaid's got great hands. He's a good red zone threat. He's a good, really short and intermediate threat as well. So if the Bills, he could really be the Bills' number 2 pass catcher, and we're not that far away from that. Maybe not as a rookie, but we're not far away from that. So I tried to get some distinction at the tight end position by taking him this early.
And by the way, this league is not tight end premium, but if it was, a lot of dynasty leagues are tight end premium where you get 1.5 points per reception for tight ends versus just 1 for other pass catchers. But if it was tight end premium, you could make an argument for him couple spots higher. Like, I probably still would take JSN over him, but you could make an argument for him ahead of Addison and Johnston.
Yep, agreed. At 10, weighed up between Devon Achane and Zach Charbonnet. Went with Achane in the end, more of a home run swing for a home run player. I just kind of believe in the Dolphins' infrastructure a little bit more than Seattle, and the main thing is that just believe in not having Ken Walker there. And I think that Achane has more of a path to kind of premium usage in front of Mostert and Wilson, who I don't think are going to be there in 2-3 years, you would expect. So Achane was the pick there for me. We know Mike McDaniel loves him.
Yeah, I was actually hoping Achane would fall to me. I was hoping you were going to take Charbonnet.
No,
so I would get Achane. But look, I've already said it throughout the show. I love me some Devon Achane. Like, absolutely love him. And I'm annoyed because I think the hype on him is going to keep putting him up draft boards. But certainly, he lands in a great situation with a coach who desperately wanted him. And there's, to your point, there's a clearer path to playing time given the injury history of Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. So it's now to me at pick 11. So first pick for team 11, and I will go Zach Charbonnet. We talked about this, like on draft night. You immediately think, like, I can't believe he's going there with Ken Walker. And then you're like, well, you look a little bit closer. And a lot of Ken Walker's production came on big runs. Like, if you take out those big runs, it doesn't look as rosy. He had the lowest success rate among running backs with over 100-plus carries last season, right? I mean, again, like, it's just like he either ran for 65 yards or, like, -2. And so Walker, who for whatever reason they didn't seem to really trust in the third down passing down role. Like, he played on less than 30% of third downs. And, you know, even though Travis Homer is now in Chicago, they still have DJ Dallas. Charbonnet's a better pass catcher than Ken Walker, I think. And so there's a chance, Pete Carroll's already come out and said, like, it's going to be a battle to be who the guy is. So this is more of a bet on talent, love Charbonnet's talent, than it is landing spot. Again, the example I gave, Breece Hall, everyone was like, Jets, bad offensive line, bad offense, Michael Carter's there, this is the worst landing spot ever. And then, you know, he probably would have been a top 5 fantasy running back had he stayed healthy the full year.
Yep.
And the reality is you're one more Kenneth Walker injury away from having one of the best pieces in the fantasy landscape at running back.
Correct.
Charbonnet. That Seattle offensive line is going to be really, really good. I'll close out round 1 for us here and go back to tight end with Michael Mayer. I just valued him too highly in this draft. Great red zone threat. He's caught 16 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. He was a possession monster. Once again, this would really dictate where your roster is at if this wasn't a startup league. If you needed a tight end, though, I think Mayer is a future top 6 tight end in the league fantasy-wise because of his possession and red zone ability. So I valued him in round 1 here to close things out.
Yep.
We will recap first-round picks right here. Obviously, Jay started us off with Bijan Robinson. Barry took Anthony Richardson, number 2 overall, very popular theme with his rushing ability and ceiling. I went with Bryce Young. Jay went back to the running back well with Jahmyr Gibbs for team number 4. Barry took Stroud, number 5, and then I got Jackson Smith-Njigba, our first wide receiver off the board at number 6. The second half of round 1, team number 7, Jay had them going Jordan Addison. Barry went Quentin Johnston as our run on wide receivers continued. Our first tight end off the board was Dalton Kincaid with his receiving ability. And then the next tier of running backs began with Devon Achane sneaking into the top 10. Zach Charbonnet even sharing that backfield with Kenneth Walker for now, still going in the first round. And Michael Mayer at 12 to team number 12.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.